Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the setup process for setting up your services as well as your locations inside the booking panel. So before I jump right into it, I want to highlight two very important things. If you go over to your settings and then front end panels, you will see you'll be able to turn off some of these different steps if you would like to do so. So if you don't have a physical location or staff members, you can just display those services as well as this information down here. And then moving on to labels, you can also translate this if you would like to do so in different languages. And then back to appearance. You can see in here, we can customize the appearance of the booking panel. So in the create a new style, if you don't like any of these, you can change the font as well as the colors inside this and fully customize that. But to jump right into it, you're going to want to start in locations. So for this example, we're going to be doing a auto detailer. So you're going to want to go over to this top right section to add location. And then from here, you can name it. So I'm going to name it auto detailing. And then you can go ahead and add an image as well as an address and phone number and description if you would like to add an image in here, and then just make the address detailing example. And then I'm gonna go ahead and click add location. So moving on to the staff tab, like I said, you can turn these sections off if you would like to do so, but we're gonna go to the top right and click add staff member. So you can see in here, we can add their name, profession, email, phone number, as well as an image. And we're going to apply that location that we just created to this user. So if you're a solopreneur and you do want to add this step, you can just make yourself a staff member if you do want to do so. So I'm going to add myself, go ahead and add an image, and then I'm going to assign that location that we just created to this staff member. And then I can also add some notes. I can add their Zoom information is here, as well as manage their schedule, special days, as well as their holidays. So I'm gonna go ahead and click add staff member. And then from here, we can go over to our services panel. Now to start with your services, you're going to want to create a category. So you can see in the graphic view, we have a few different categories for different services, but we're just gonna do this in the list view. And you're gonna wanna go over to this add category button, and we are just going to name this auto detailing. And then we can go ahead and save that. So moving on, you're going to want to go over to this add service button after you created that category. And then you can see in here, we can select and assign that category to this service. So we have some other options in here. We can add an image. We're going to assign that staff member that we just created to this service. And then you can see we can name the service, set the price. We can enable deposits. We're going to set the duration, as well as we can hide the price on the booking panel, hide the duration. And we can also make this a reoccurring service or reoccurring payment from monthly, weekly, as well as daily. And then we're going to write a description, and we can also activate this as a Zoom link if you would like to do so. But first, I'm just going to change the color, and then I'm going to add an image. Now I will name this service, and then I'm going to set the price, and then I'm going to set the duration. So what the duration is how long this service takes. So for this example, we're just going to do 2 hours, and then the time slot length, we're just going to set this to an hour, as well as the same as the buffer time. We're going to set this to an hour, and then buffer time after, we're just going to set this to an hour. For this example, we're not going to be making this a reoccurring service or charge. And then moving on, we're going to write a description. So we're just going to put that in there. Like I said, you're going to want to assign that staff member. You can add more staff members, and then you can configure a timesheet in here, add some extra services, as well as set the settings for this service. But from here, we're just going to go ahead and click add service. And just like that, if we go back to our booking panel, you can see auto detailing as a location. And then we're going to select a staff member, and then that service that we just created, as well as a date and time. And then I would fill out my information and then click next. And then it's going to take us to our cart where we can add more services if we would like to do so. And then we're going to click next. And then, like I said, we are on a free plan here. So the only payment option you're going to see is local. But if you are on a paid version, you would see this would be like an actual checkout page for Stripe, PayPal, or SquarePay, whichever one you're using. And then from here, you can click confirm booking. And the user has some different options to add this to their Google Calendar, as well as some other options in here. Back in my dashboard, if I go to my calendar, you will see after we created that booking, we can see that service in the calendar, as well as all the information on that booking. And then moving on to payments, we can check the payment status, as well as see that customer's data in here. We can see that they did not pay because it was set to local. And then moving on to customers, you can see we have their information in this tab. All right, so that wraps up setting up your services in your booking panel. If you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. And thank you guys for watching.